now take you to the broadcast of It's Time with Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. Here's Reverend Martin.
All right, thank you, Dr. Blackwell. My name is Reverend Nathaniel Wayne Martin. I'm the pastor of the New Life Institutional Baptist Church here in the coming out of quarantine city of Los Angeles. We're located at 8916 South Main Street. And I want to give a shout out to all of those that have supported us all this year and all last year through the pandemic. May God continue to richly bless you, and not only you, but all of those with whom you are associated with. May the blessing and the favor of God shower upon your shoulders, upon your life, and upon your endeavors. The offering which you are looking at or listening to is entitled It's Time. And what is it time for, you may ask? It is always time for social justice. It is therefore always time for social activism. Social justice must always include environmental justice because of what the degradations that the environment has suffered or has endured or has been subjected to. And that environmental justice is not only for the natural or the physical environment, but for the society, the people who have endured much within the constrictions and restrictions that have been artificially imposed upon the society by the so-called greater or more privileged society. They've imposed restrictions and an artificial environment, unnatural environment, upon those who were deemed to be, shall we say, underprivileged or not as privileged as the aforementioned privileged group. And so that facet of environmental justice must also involve and be followed up in concert with an economic arm, because we live in a capitalistic system, and the very word capital means that somebody's capitalizing off of someone else at all times, in every situation, in every circumstance. Someone's trying to make $1 off of a poor man or a poor woman all day long. And so that has obtained and has persisted from the 1619 all the way up until now. Yes, unabated, variegated, yes, but still exploitative, still capitalizing off of my pain. We have been exploited, and we have been subjected to the rigors and the evils of the capitalistic system. Capitalism cannot flourish unless there is a maintained intrinsic inequality, which means that someone must be benefiting, but at the same time, the one that is benefiting can only benefit at the harm, by the harm or the penalty being posed upon someone else. And that system has ruled this world, ruled this country especially, since the landing of the first enslaved people on this shore in 1619, and it has continued in one form or another, all the way through Reconstruction, all the way through the Jim Crow era, the segregation era, all the way on through the modern civil rights movement, and even down to this very hour, we are still subjected to the inequalities, the systemic, built-in, intrinsic inequalities of a capitalistic system. And yes, they have rained especially hard down upon the black people. As Lee Atwater said, when you talk about abstract things such as tax relief, you know that you're really getting away from racism. But you know one thing, that the black people are going to get hurt the worst. And so that description, that proclamation by the one of the most prominent campaign strategists for the Republican Party is still true at this very hour. And so if we're going to talk about making people whole, if we're going to talk about people being equal and equity, then we must always talk about economic restitution, and that economic restitution must involve reparations, because of the fact that America is not what it would have been had there never been the recognition of slavery or the imposition of such systemic racism into the very institutions that people depend on and look to for guidance and help in all facets of time, and that being the institution of the government, institution of housing, institutions of banking, commerce, finance, education, and yes, healthcare. Let me recite to you in your hearing our reparation scripture, which is in Deuteronomy chapter 15, picking up our reading, our recitation at verse 12, which says thusly, "And if thy brother, an Hebrew man, or an Hebrew woman, be sold unto thee and serve thee 6 years, then in the 7th year thou shalt let him or her go out free from thee. And when thou sendest them out free from thee, thou shalt not let them go away empty, but thou shalt furnish them liberally out of thy floor, and out of thy flock, and out of thy winepress. Of that wherewith the Lord thy God hath blessed thee, thou shalt give unto them." And we stress giving, not selling, not loaning, not renting, not leasing, as the manner of the capitalistic system is. But the Bible policy, the Bible paradigm says, the Bible model says, thou shalt give unto them. And so America has always been in violation and has been breaking the law of God from the implementation of such a vicious form of slavery that was no less than some Marquis de Sade version of refined cruelty. In that chattel slavery was practiced in this country. And as they say, not only did a person become another person's portable, movable, personal property, human being property, but that person was stripped of their identity. They were stripped of their religion, stripped of their culture, stripped of their language, stripped of their family ties, stripped of all things that made them human. As the late Dr. John Henry Clark said, a person must have a history, a person must have a land, a geography, somewhere from whence they sprang, in order to have to be considered a whole human being. And for so long, we were even denied, and we were divorced and separated for our ancient home on the shores, in the land, on the continent rather, of Africa. And because those who wrote the history books wrote it as a mythology, they wrote this grand word I was using before was the word mythology, but they wrote this grand narrative that turned out to be inaccurate, which is my way of saying it was a lie. And these inaccuracies were perpetuated down through the centuries, down through the years. And a point of fact and example, we are now celebrating as a federal holiday by resolution the 19th of June, which was the 19th of June, 1865, was the day that General Granger, leading the United States Army into Galveston, Texas, on the plantation, called the formerly enslaved, who thought they were still enslaved, called them together, and in the presence of the plantation owners and in the hearing of the slave catchers and all of that retinue and the enslaved persons themselves, read the Riot Act to their enslavers and let them know that the executive order had set them all free, not just then, the day they heard it, but had set them free 2 years prior. 2 years and several months prior. 2 years, 6 months prior. And yet the powers that be, the privileged group, had refused or refrained from informing the people that they were enslaving that the government has this day set you free. And that is the racialization of time. You see, when Dr. King and the civil rights warriors, of which he was the head, in other words, began to protest the treatment of colored people or Negroes in the cities and in the counties and in the states across the South and across the North. It was no different in which they resided, and to demand that taxes that they were paying for those public parks and the taxes they were paying for those publicly maintained high schools and the public maintained fire departments and police departments, that they would get their fair share of those taxes, benefits of those taxes as well. Then the white power structure began to tell them, well, now you're moving too fast. And that's what you call a racialization of time. Another man is telling you that you're moving too fast to get freedom. You're moving too fast to get liberty. But yet, Patrick Henry declared, give me liberty or give me death. What did Nathan Hale said? My only regret is that I have but one life to give for my country. But yet, when it comes to the colored people, to the Negro, he's told he's moving too fast toward freedom. The 13 colonists fought a revolutionary war against King George III because they said he was treating them like slaves. Can you imagine? And at the same time, they were going on upwards of 4 million of their fellow brothers and sisters in that worst form of slavery ever known in the history of bloody mankind. They tried to conflate the history practice in the United States with the slavery practice in the United States with the slavery that was practiced in other countries. There's no comparison. There was no comparison. There was no comparison, I tell you. And when you look at how the establishment has used time and imposed time, and in many cases restricted time, it has always been to the advantage of the privileged and to the disadvantage of the underprivileged. And so now, as we look at Juneteenth, you see a graphic application of time being used against the enslaved. Our children have lost a solid year of education because of this pandemic. It's going to take 4 years to make up that 1 year that our children have lost, or they have been severely handicapped educationally by that loss of classroom participation in the schoolroom across this nation. And whereas others may have benefited from the Zoom and the internet as it were, we see now that neither the Zoom nor the internet is a successor to the active classroom participation, because in the classroom you have less distraction than you have at home trying to keep a kid's attention, and he or she is at home. Oh no. And so that disparity is going to show up all through this present coming generation. They have lost valuable educational time, and I pray, but I know that most of us are not going to make up that lost education time. So yes, they're getting promoted, they're getting pushed on forward, but do they know what they need to go to the next class? You know, are they prepared? Because each class prepares you for the next class. And so you can see why I am so deeply concerned and deeply interested in how our children are going to fare going forward, because this pandemic was unexpected, but yet it served to highlight and to put in stark relief the educational disparities in our educational system between how the poor children are treated in school and the rich, which tend to be mostly of the value of what we call the political value of whiteness. The disparity has been heightened and brought out into a glaring realization. And so as we celebrate Juneteenth, let us not fail to recognize that we're being given symbolism in place of substance. What is the substance? Substance is the Voting Rights Act. The substance is the ability to vote that is now being suppressed. The substance is that if you are a felon in most of the southern states, when you come out, you never get back your right to vote. You forever disenfranchised. So yeah, you may be able to eat watermelon and drink red soda water, but you can't vote, and your vote is what counts in these various elections. You see, just busting firecrackers and setting off cherry bombs and all of that stuff we do, streamers and all of that, that's not helping us. We need the solid manifestation, the solid application of what it means to be a United States citizen. Is that right? Free and equal access to the ballot box, free and equal access to participate in the juries all across this country, all across this nation, in every state, free and unhindered access to the loans, yes, free, because for a long time we were totally blocked out. We were totally prohibited from getting these housing loans. That's why you have the ghettos all across this nation. Those ghettos were not what anybody would willingly choose. Those ghettos were imposed from outside. They were imposed by the federal, state, and county and local governments upon the citizens who, even though they paid more than their share of taxes to support said country did everything it could by law and by violence to see that the black people never got the full and equal recognition or full and equal access. Access is what we need, access to opportunity. You see, you need access. You need access to job information. You need access to the opportunity to go after a profession. You need the door to be open, or the window to be open, and when the news of professions or careers or jobs is being disseminated, you need to be able to hear so that you likewise can act upon it. And this has not been an equal playing field ever in this nation when it comes to things like that. And even going back in the days of World War I, well, go all the way back. Go all the way back to Crispus Attucks, the American Revolution, going through all the wars that America has ever fought, but which the black man has been compelled and called upon to give his blood as though he was going to get the full and equal rights of the people who brought about the war, who wanted to wage war, were promoting, was saying that we're going to make the world safe for democracy. We're going to spread democracy. I was just listening yesterday to people trying to explain why the folks want to come to America from Guadalajara, Guatemala, and San Salvador, and El Salvador, and Nicaragua, and all of those countries, because that for over 200 years almost, the United States of America waged war against those the countries down there. Now, I just mentioned a few of them. The United States, Oaxaca, and all of those places. They waged war against those people. What did they wage war about? They waged war because they did not want those people to have democratic governments. They did not want democracy to be spread in Nicaragua. They did not want democracy to be spread in Guatemala or any of the Central American countries. They didn't want democracy in Cuba. They didn't want democracy in Haiti. They don't want democracy in Haiti now. You see? And so when those people who live there said, well, we're going over that way, y'all got democracy. Well, now, so, well, don't come here. Well, how you going to tell me don't come here? You don't come down here and mess up my country. And America bragged and boasted about their ability to destabilize the governments of Mexico, destabilize the governments of Nicaragua and Guatemala and the Dominican Republic, and destabilize the governments of Haiti. While the United States put the legitimately elected, democratic elected president of Haiti, United States Marine went in there and kidnapped Aristide, and took Aristide and dropped him off in Central Africa, and told Brazil, said, if you let him back in over there, then we're going to cut off all aid to your country. That's the kind of stuff America pulled, and that's why you have people knocking on the doors. Who's that knocking on the door? Somebody's ringing the bell. Open the door, let them in, because we have ruined those countries. Through our forays and through our CIA and the like activities, where we have gone in there and not only assassinated the elected leader, but then put in the person we wanted that would sign all the bills and the laws and the contracts that we needed to plunder the resources of those countries and give nothing back to those citizens. We are guilty of that. And it's no surprise. That's the way America rolls. That's the way America rolls. That's the way they're rolling in Iraq. That's the way they're rolling in Afghanistan. Who got the rights to the oil in Iraq? Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. Not at all. But Iraq was rich in oil, some of the best crude oil in the world, so I'm told. And America, in the person of Dick Cheney, who was the former president of Halliburton and the like, his ilk. Remember, they run the government, and so they fomented war. They promoted the war. They urged on the war. And then when the war was declared, they were the ones who profited and benefited by all of the contracts that were signed to repair and rebuild Iraq. And the oil, much of that oil, is now the property of Monsieur Cheney's company, if not indirectly in the name, not directly in the name of Halliburton, certainly in a name that is connected. You can bet your bottom dollar on that, because war is, as some general said in the movie, is big business, and business is good. And so the profiteer, the war profiteer, they want the wars to continue. They prosper. They build their wealth. They don't build riches, they build wealth. Wealth is what you have to pass on to your succeeding generation. And Cheney and that ilk, they have so much wealth built up that the government has to step in if they get in trouble, because they are too powerful, too big to fail. And that is what we are looking at, the stark reality. So while we give a nod to the 19th of June, remember it's only a resolution. We was already celebrating it anyway. And so it is no biggie when the government finally recognizes that what it condoned originally in the Constitution, this 3/5 clause, and persons held to service, persons held to labor or servitude, as the correct language in the Constitution, that itself was a compact with the devil, with Lucifer. It was an agreement with hell, as it were. And now we are still not free of that scourge. We are still not free of that blot, of that blight that the founding fathers, someone called them the fondling fathers, because Thomas Jefferson and the like were dallying. We use the word dallying guardedly with their enslaved female slaves. They started out when they were 12, 13 years old. The time that girl started budding out, Sally Hemings, and Thomas Jefferson was up in it, and she had no say-so. She couldn't say no, and so that's why some people call them the fondling fathers, including George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and all of the presidents of this country who were slave holders. Okay? Keep praying for our nation. Keep praying for our country. We have, until this country is willing to come to grips with its past, we'll always be having this argument about you can't teach critical race theory because you're going to teach the inferiority of the white kid. Well, what about when you're teaching the inferiority of the black kid? The black kid had to put up with that. I was a black kid. I had to put up with it. Huh? And I had to turn out like I am. All right. So how come they're not strong enough to put up with it? But now when it comes to that little delicate, dainty personality, they can't stand to see history in its true light. They love special effects, but when they look at real history, brutal, as somebody said one time, nature red in tooth and claw, then all of a sudden they want to wobble, wiggle, and run away. Don't run away from history. History is a clock. History is a compass. History tells you where you are. History tells you when, how, and what. And you need to face history in order to move forward as a whole. And yes, America must pay reparation. And yes, it must return the land to the people, the descendants of the people from Tulsa and the like. Just like the people of Manhattan Beach are going to return Bruce's Beach to the black family, the descendants of the black family from which that beach was taken way back there in 1900. Excuse me. Tomorrow Juneteenth celebration is going to be a ceremony of return. I'm going to go down there and observe it and witness it myself. Therefore, as I wrap up and get out of here, I promise you we're going to keep on fighting. We're going to keep on struggling. We're going to keep on pushing. And those you that are working on these little rat trap, thoughtless, thankless jobs where you got more money from the stimulus than you getting paid, you may well tell those people to take that job and shove it. And while you're young and while you can learn something else, go start working on you another job. Working on another job. Start putting your nickels and dimes and quarters and all of that money together and start getting into the trading of options and futures and stocks, because that's where your future is going to be. Because if those people don't want to pay you, I'm going to tell you what you need to do. Don't work for them. All right, Doc, thank you. We out of here.